again, everybody, and welcome to It's Only Cooking. We're not inventing anything here, we're just cooking. And I'm a home chef, not a chef, not even a cook. I'm just a home cook. So everything I get here I've gotten from the likes of Julia Childs, from Gordon Ramsay, from even Frankie Colenza on Struggle Meals. I've gotten it from everywhere. So these opinions, while they're mine, may not represent anybody fictional or real life, but they're just mine and they don't represent any opinions or views of the station. There's my disclaimer. So what I'm going to do today is something that's so common and so easy, is chili. But what I want to do is explain to you some of the things in chili and how to do some of the things that might make it easier. Some people say a chili takes all day. You can whip up a chili in about a half hour, 40 minutes. But if you want the flavors to really get in from all the powders, because what you have is you're using chili powders, which are powder, right? It's from peppers that have been dehydrated. Your meat has oil in it. That's why you're using a fattier meat, so it has oils. It needs to reconstitute in there and make it a nice broth and not just be powdery like a pepper, like a grain of pepper. So it needs time to do that, to really blend the flavors. But it'll be ready to go in like I say, 40-45 minutes of cooking. A couple different ways you can do that. Today we're going to use the Le Creuset. It's cast iron and it's enameled so that it won't stick and you can put it in the oven. Now you can do it in a slow cooker. If you really have the patience, you can do it on the stove, but you worry about it burning and all those things. So I like to tend to do it this way. I can put it in the oven. Now I put it at a low temperature because this thing really builds up the heat and it'll burn. Nothing worse than burnt chili. It's a bowl of red, not a bowl of black, which is the other reason why I use white pepper instead of black pepper. I don't want little flecks of black in there. People think you burnt something or it doesn't look appetizing. Just me. You can put black pepper if that's all you have and that's what you want to do. So as with every cooking adventure we do, we have the mise en place. Mise en place means everything's in place so that you're not moving around and trying to find things that you need. We have the peppers, chili powder from the peppers. I usually get 2 or 3 different kinds. Now, where I like to get them from is a place called Pendry's. You can get it online, they're down in Texas. They have the last 10-15 years of the National Chili Cook-Off winners blends. You can also buy all the individual components. I like to buy a blend here. This is a kind of a mix between a Carroll Shelby and the Terlingua winner. And then I like to put in a second blend that has a lot more. This is my own. I just put a darker chili powder, regular chili powder you get at the store, and some more cumin, ground cumin, because I like that. Brown sugar. And of course, the tomato sauce, it is a bowl of red. And then I like to layer in a couple of different peppers in it. What I like to put in there is some chilies, some chopped green chilies. Again, my family likes things a little milder. I like them spicier, but you can add spice to it when you're done. So these are some green chilies, some jalapenos, fresh jalapenos. Fresh peppers always add another extra level of flavor. And if you take the seeds out and de-seed it, it really takes away a lot of the heat and you just get the flavor. They also, a little bit of salt. Don't go crazy with the salt because that's the worst thing in chilies is they get salty. So what we're going to do now first is, the first thing you want to do is onion. Now onion's a bit for texture, but a bit for flavor. The problem with onions and why a lot of people in chili cook-offs are very careful about it is because they want their chili to be the same every time. We're only cooking here. We're not in a cook-off. Just remember that. We're not going to the moon. We're just cooking. So you can do things and adapt to what you would like to adapt them to. So I said, everybody knows how to cut an onion, and my producer said, well, you know what, humor me. Show them how they cut the onion. So, of course, you may remember from a different episode, the chef's knife. This is what I'll use for that. Not held here, but held more like a paintbrush or a pencil. Can you get that, Mr. Producer? There we go. And then we're going to leave the root in place. That's what holds the whole thing together a little bit. We're going to take the end off here so we have something that we can use. Throw that into our junk pot there. Now we're going to take and we're going to cut this down the middle through the root. So that way we have 2 nice halves of an onion. So we'll put that one over there just so we can look at it. Now we'll want to take off this outer shell. It's again good for the stock pot, but not as good for eating in your chili. Tends to be a little tough. So now you've got this, and you can see it's all being held together by the root here. The way you want to get some nice chop and make it easy and no problem, again, there's a little, nod to Gordon Ramsay. It seems so obvious, again, to cut it, but you cut all these down almost to the end, but not all the way to the end, and you make them relatively small, the cuts relatively a small distance apart. Because you want this to be chopped pretty fine. You're going to brown it. You're looking to caramelize them before we put them in the chili. This is probably the longest part of the cooking, this and browning the meat. Then now you've got all these nice little slats in here like this. You're going to just take it, again, fingers, knuckles against the blade, and you're going to go right down and cut off some really, really nice chopped onion. Now we don't need a lot here. This isn't a very big batch we're making. We're going to use about 2 pounds of meat, so we'll put that aside. If we like this, let's just give it a nice little look, see if we got any of the stragglers there that are from the edges. Well, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. So remember what I told you in another earlier one? You do not scrape that knife across there. What you want to do is you want to use this to scrape it up. So we'll talk about this in a minute. Before I start cooking the onions, I want to talk a little bit about the meat that was used. A lot of my friends call what I make a steak chili. I got 2 different things in here, but I wanted 2 pounds of meat. So I'll show this to this producer here. You can see I have a chili grind here. This is a meat you can get there. It's ground a little bit more, and you can see that it's about the size of this stew meat, basically, that I took and chopped into pieces, roughly the size of your pinky fingernail. That's what you want, and that's what these are going to be too when you get done. So it's going to be roughly the same consistency. What I like to have those, I like to have a little bit of fat, like I say, to go in with the oil. So without any further ado, I'll get the pan heated up, and we'll start browning the onions. So what we're going to do is we're going to brown these and get them caramelized so that they're nice and sweet. And this won't take long. This is the first part of getting it ready. And then we're going to brown the meat real quick. We don't have to bore you with how we do that. We're just going to brown meat. But then we'll show you how we assemble it all. But the star of the show is going to be this beef broth. And it's the one that changes everything. And after the break, once we get everything in the pot and we get it going, I think I'm going to have the producer show you some footage we shot of how we made this. And this is something you can make yourself. It's not demi-glace, but it is better beef stew than you can get in the store.
Canine Stray Rescue is Oxford's own local dog rescue. Each year they take in hundreds of dogs and bring them into suitable homes. A certified nonprofit organization, Canine Dog Rescue strives to give pound dogs a new leash on life. To donate, adopt, or even volunteer, call them at 248-628-0435 or go to their website, dogsaver.org, and click on the Canine Stray Rescue League link.
When it comes to vaping, the truth can get clouded. So let's make it clear. Vaping is not safe for kids, teens, or young adults. It's just not.
Because vaping can put microscopic particles into your lungs.
And dangerous things like metals and volatile organic compounds into your body.
And nicotine, the same highly addictive substance found in regular cigarettes.
Nicotine can harm a person's brain development through their mid-20s,
affecting learning, memory, attention, and impulse control, and priming the brain for other addictions.
Vaping products also come in kid-friendly flavors that can make them appealing to youth.
And many kids also use other drugs, like marijuana, in vaping devices.
With appealing flavors, high nicotine levels, and lots of promotion on social media,
many kids think vaping is harmless, but it's not.
So talk to your kids about the risks of vaping, because when you talk, they hear you.
We like to always start with our mise en place, which we have here. Here we have our leeks. They've been cut in half so they can put in water and be rinsed very well, because these grow in the dirt and they have sand in them. And they tend to get a lot of sand. You have to get it between the little fibers. So this is what the sand we got out of this batch. And it's a fair amount, so you want to get that out of there. Of course, we have onions now for caramelizing. Rough cut celery. You want to leave the tops on the celery because those leaves have a lot of flavor. Of course, the carrots, they're washed very well, but we leave the skins on because the skin has a lot of flavor. Don't peel them. A couple cans of tomato sauce and some tomato paste. Some peppercorns, 21 of them exactly. I'm just kidding, it's only cooking. And a bunch of thyme. Bundle it together, we're not gonna chop it, it just goes in the broth. And then your low sodium beef broth, as low as you can get. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to caramelize the onions. Get yourself a hot pan that you like. I like cast iron because it holds a nice even heat and kind of makes it real easy for doing this operation of caramelizing the onions. You don't want to get burnt spots on them. You might get some. It won't hurt a thing. It's only cooking, just caramelize it. It's just fine. If you want to turn the temperature down a little bit, it'll take a little longer. If you turn it higher, you might get a little bit of burn. You'll really have to stir it, but it takes about 5 to 7 minutes. We want to get water out of these onions, and we're going to put just a hair of salt. I know I said no seasonings, no salt, but salt helps the water come out of the onions a little bit, and that lets more of the flavor be enhanced there. We're going to just keep slowly caramelizing them until they get about this color right here. That adds a lot of nice color to your broth as well. So these took about 8 minutes, 7 or 8 minutes. I was being very slow with them, so if you do it a little faster, it might be a little browner, but you want to get about to this level. Now we take and place all of our vegetables into the stock pot. And there's no particular order. Don't worry, don't panic. This is all going in one place and we're going to mix it up. So again, everything is low sodium that you use of any canned ingredients. Make sure you read the labels. And then we're going to add the broth. And the amount of broth is really dependent upon how big your vegetables are in the stock pot. This is a really big stock pot, so this one in particular is going to take about 9 to 12 cups of broth. You want to just cover the vegetables with an inch or so of the broth. Give it a little stir, just so it'll mix everything up, and bring it to a boil. As soon as you bring it to a boil, we're going to mix up, get the heat and vegetables all mixed, and then we're going to turn the temperature down. So we're basically a heavy steep, if you will, steeping like tea. We want it to, bloop, bloop, kind of a boil like that, not a bubble, bubble, bubble boil. That way you won't lose all of your broth through evaporation, and it'll It'll be perfect when you get to the step where you're going to now drain it in a colander. Place a scoop at a time, a couple scoops at a time, push it down a little bit just to drain that off, and then take your vegetables and put them in a second colander. That way you can get all and every bit of that, good flavor out of there and get it into your bowl. Put it into a deli container, take that, put them in your freezer, and you'll have them for the next time you go to make something.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, no matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
If you like to spend time in the outdoors, then there's a good chance you could come across a young fawn. And normally, young fawns are found alone because their mothers place them there to be safe. A young fawn has very little scent, and the mother will only come in just a couple times a day in order to feed it and leaves quickly so that she doesn't leave behind her scent. So if you find a young fawn curled up in the grass, that's actually the safest place for it to be. Enjoy that moment, but don't touch it or move it. The mother will be back soon.
Only licensed rehabilitators can legally possess wildlife, so please leave wildlife in the wild. For a list of licensed rehabilitators throughout the state, visit michigan.gov/wildlife.
Canine Stray Rescue does just that. Rescue stray dogs for new families. But they need your help. Become a volunteer at Canine Stray Rescue League of Michigan. Take dogs for walks, help them socialize with others, and help them get adopted. Fill out an application and help a family add a new member today.
You budget. You pay bills.
Yet somehow, women like you, like me,
are 80% more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to save ourselves by setting a goal to save 2% more of our income for our retirement.
Why 2? 1% honors you.
And 1% honors all womankind.
So come on, learn more about the 2% challenge at WeSaySaveIt.org.
Well, welcome back. And as you can see, I'm browning the meat right now. And I've moved the mise en place closer to the stove so I don't forget to put anything in. Now we start out by putting the sauce, the tomato sauce, into the pot. We want to heat that up a little bit, get the flavors all mixed and get the flavors going. Next, we'll add our custom-made beef broth. Now I heat this up before I add it because it comes out of my frozen, stockpile I have in the freezer, so I have to heat it up so I don't bring the temperature down too quick. And then I mix it all up, get that mixed nice. So we're gonna go back now to finish browning the meat. We're gonna cook this meat to fairly medium to medium well because you don't want it to continue to render out too much fat in the cooking process of the chili because you'll get this big dark brown grease slick on top of the chili. You want a little one but not a large one because you want some of the fat to still render out and mix with the chili powder, and that's what you really want. You want to render it, so you want to cook it nice and slow, and that's why it's good in the cooker, slow cooker, or the oven. Okay, back to the chili pot here. I'm going to add brown sugar. And people would say, why are you putting brown sugar? It's not a lot, but it's dark brown sugar. It has a little molasses flavor, but sugar enhances the flavor of the chili powder and all the chili sauce. The salt does also, but you want to be careful with too much salt. Okay, a tomato sauce that I put in is any brand. It's just an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. Try not to get one with Italian seasoning, and that's all. And then I use 2 8-ounce containers of my beef broth from my stockpile. Okay, and then add these jalapeno peppers. Again, no seeds because first off, they don't look great. And second of all, the seeds add a tremendous amount of heat that you don't get just from the flesh of the pepper. Then of course, the chopped green chilies. Right now is a good time to add a dash of salt so you can combine the flavors, and that makes that flavor come front of mouth. Put a little of this white pepper in. Remember, it's pretty pungent, so you don't want to over add, just add a little bit. And remember, you can taste this as you're going, because everything's cooked. I mean, you're just mixing flavors, and you can take a little taste and see how it's doing. And as you can see, the chili pot is hot. It already looks a lot like chili, and we haven't even put the powder in yet. Now I'm going to take the slotted spoon to put the beef into the chili pot. That's going to minimize the amount of the cooked out fat that I got from the browning process. Remember, 2 pounds of beef, carefully measured. Remember, we're only cooking here. If this was baking, I'd be a little more careful. Of course, when I bake, it turns out to be a mud pie of flour, so thank goodness this isn't only baking. All right, now we'll get this stirred. We haven't added our chili powder yet. Now, 2 schools of thought on this. One school is you add all your chili powder now, which is what we're going to do, only because I'm lazy and don't want to have to come back to it. But you can see right now it looks like basically a bit of a beef stew with a little red tinge to it. So what we're going to dump in is we're going to dump this is our homemade stuff with a lot of cumin. You can see all the cumin in there. It's got a little bit of diced onion. It's just got a little dried onion. It's got a little bit of everything in it, but it's not really a lot of flavoring. I just like a little heavier cumin in mine than they put in a lot of powders. And like I said, this is closer to a Carroll Shelby. He won the chili cook-off, by the way, amongst other things. The guy's done everything. And a Terlingua 1. That'd be WON 1, Terlingua 1. Been sitting here a while, so she's soaked up some of the water in here. Now, there we go. So what we got now is, again, that was about, let's call it half a cup of chili powder. Now, the other school of thought is you can put in your powder now, get it nice and mixed, and you let this, then you're going to let this cook. And you're going to bring it to a boil. It's already boiling now. You can see it's pretty close. And you're gonna let it basically steep all the chili in there. What happens, people like to do, is people want to get to the end and do what they call a finishing powder. That's a big trick in the chili cook-offs because of a couple things. Number one is, as you're cooking in a chili cook-off, and I know some folks that have been in these and been beaten by these things. Your chili, you don't know how long it's going to sit on the judge's stand before yours actually gets tasted. So as it cools, it gets saltier. And as it gets saltier, the flavor of your powder, because it's been in there a while, starts to go to the back of the flavor. It goes to the back of the taste. So you can't taste as much, you just taste salt. So they're always very careful not to put a lot of salt in this, and they taste it all the way. And we're going to taste this in a little bit too, just to make sure it's the flavor we want it before we let it start doing its thing. Here's the beautiful thing about chili. You can taste it all through the process to see if it's getting where you want. If it's feeling a little, turn this down a little bit so we don't splash my entire backsplash here. So if it's got a little heavy feel to it, a little too much of a beefy feel, now squeeze half a teaspoonful of lemon juice. Put that in there. That takes away some of that. If it's a little salty, well, that'll take away some of that saltiness too. So it'll help. So here you can see we're basically coming into home base with this. We just have to let that. Now what I'll do, like I said, I will put this in the, if you're using a metal utensil, a little trick here. Take a wooden spoon, do it like that. That way you don't bang up the whole edge of your pan, and it taps that out like that. It's a little trick. You may have noticed that I didn't put any beans in the chili. I don't put beans in the chili. The only reason, and most competitions don't, that's an instant loss. That's not why. Beans were from the Depression to put beans in it so it went further. A lot of people like beans. That's the way they've had it. It's a comfort food. Great. You like it with beans? Put beans in it. If you're not going to take your own dried beans and reconstitute them, and you're going to use canned beans, my daughter likes black beans in it, do that. But put them in right near the end, the last 10 or 15 minutes. Otherwise, these turn to mush in there and you won't like it. So black beans especially, drain them, stir them up in there, they'll heat right up, maybe the last 5 minutes, and you're good to go. If you want to put kidney beans, same thing, but if you're going to do dried beans and you're going to soak them in water and put them in there, those will need a little longer to get to a consistency you're going to be happy with in the chili. What we're going to do now, we're going to lid this and we're going to put it in the oven. I like to put it in the oven for about 2.5 hours, 2 hours, at about 250, 260. Doesn't have to be very hot, just enough to get it bloop, bloop. Now you want to give it a bloop. Don't want to bloop, 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 because it'll burn. It'll burn all the edges and it won't taste right. So just nice and slow, pull it out and check it. If it's burning too fast, turn the oven down a little bit. Your oven might be hotter. You know, you gotta, or it might not be as hot. You gotta do what you have to do to make it get to that point. So we'll be right back. Well, welcome back. And of course, this is unscripted TV, so life sometimes gets in the way. After a little shoveling of their driveway, our chili's been able to sit undisturbed in the oven while it cooked out, which gets all the meat rendered so all the beef is tender and all the spices are mixed. So Elvis and I are going to enjoy a little bit of a chili here. We're going to have only cooking turned to only eating. I like to dress mine up just a little bit. That makes it pretty, makes it taste good. Sprinkle a little cheddar around there. And last but not least, a little bit of onions. Now this chili, it is terrific 2 days later, 3 days later, and you can put this and freeze this in the freezer for, I've done it as long as 4 months, and I pull it out and it is delicious. The flavor's even better. I recommend you mix a little water with it, little at a time. You can't take it out once you put too much in, but a little water and it's going to be terrific and you're going to love it. You can make this a couple days later, put yourself some chips down, a layer of cheese, bake it in the oven for about 350 for about 5 minutes or so, get it nice and melty, and spread some of this chili over it with your onions and your lettuce and the whole thing, and you've got yourself a nice nacho that you made yourself. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.